Anyway, who has?
I'm still hung up on this picture, Reese. This is not her.
I
It's
guess
so weird. It's so weird.
I'm sure part of
Reese
it
would
is.
wear those pants.
No, Reese wears those pants for sure. Like in her place.
It's her giant forehead that's throwing me off, I think.
So, like, one of Reese's physical, like, she has this hair that just moves on its own even when there's no breeze. And, like, this person just doesn't have that.
She has a giant forehead, and I'm just left wondering why.
Nobody with a giant forehead can be described as darkly beautiful. You can be darkly beautiful, or you can have the giant forehead. You can't have both.
Maybe her forehead absorbs light.
But that should be described as darkly forehead, surely.
That is indeed a very bad picture of a drow, yes.
Who has a 100-word summary of the trouble you guys got into last session?
Apparently, Eldov stole Google.
Yeah.
Also,
does anybody
Google from Mechanos?
Did anybody not only remember the name of the Google that Eldov and Terran stole, but can get it right on the first try?
I remember the name, but I am not going to try and say it.
Not confident?
Aptonanacron.
It's very close.
We're gone.
Right?
Gone, not con.
Aptonanacragon. I know I'm pronouncing it correctly because after I invented the word, I literally practiced it for a long time.
The Aptonanacragon.
We'll see whether the Aptonanacragon ever comes back into play or not.
You need to ask the Captain and Knockergon what the founders called it, because I highly doubt they called it that.
The Pepto Oregon.
Well, one of the founders was Cube, and I guarantee Cube would have called it that.
Oh, I mean, for sure, Cube did. But this is also important. Cube's a nerd.
Cube is a nerd.
And what else? Was that it? Was that all we did last session?
Oh, no, we did Operation Fish Sticks.
Oh, that's right. We stuck a guy in a hole until he died.
Yeah,
We turned a man into a fish, a quipper, to be most specific.
Kipper.
Kipper? Yeah, there you go. And then we stuck him in a bag, a bag of holding, until he suffocated to death. And then we handed his body to the authorities.
And then what happened?
We washed our hands of the whole thing.
Yep.
That seems about right, yeah.
We got called to see Tin Cells. I don't remember what for. He had a problem. I don't remember what it was.
His problem was that he's thinking that the king of Dunfoss is dead and people in the palace are covering it up, and he wants to hire us to get in there and find out what's what.
Right, we're gonna do the Metal Gear Solid thing again, except this time I'm wearing the plate mail.
Well, we do the Metal Gear Solid thing, and once again, nobody's trained in stealth. We're going to sit. It's going to be just like Metal Gear Solid 3, where you hide in a bush for an hour and cry.
Is that still how you play Metal Gear Solid 3 after all these years?
I mean, I haven't actually played Metal Gear Solid 3 in like 5 or 6 years, so maybe I'm due to replay it.
So
I just remember you run up to everyone and throw them into the ground.
Well, that's how I play it now, yeah. That's the way to be. The actual specifics of the plot. Ten Sails and other people in Dunfoss are starting to become convinced that the king is dead and that his house is trying to cover it up. These kinds of rumors have been floating around even before we started the campaign, but about a month ago he made a public appearance where he pledged Dunfoss's military to wage war against the undead in the dwarven homes to the north, where his family estate is, because there's been a vampire and or zombie outbreak. Also, you guys sent your intern to war.
Yeah, that happened.
which I guess means that we've canonically established House Flumph, and Kevin Flumpson has gone off to war in your stead. Anyway, he believes
if we're a recognized house by the crown, then hey, look,
There's money in it.
yeah.
Tensales and other interests in Dunfoss believe that the king's body is being held in or under the palace. Typically, this wouldn't be a huge problem. Tensales is not on a particular time scale. The people of the city love him, but he's uncovered information that all this same information has fallen into the hands of Journey, one of his competitors for the next king of Dunfoss. And he thinks that Journey is conspiring to either herself or an agent of hers sneak into the catacombs beneath the palace, find where the body is being kept, and revealing this information to the citizens of Dunfoss. If she does this, she's pretty much a shoo-in for next king. Almost certainly. He wants you guys to find the dead king before she does.
I'm sorry if we covered this last session.
Mm-hmm.
Does he think the king has died since his public appearance, or was that?
A lot of people think that. A lot of people think
okay.
Bernie.
because you all watched The King Spoke, but he was having great difficulty moving and great difficulty projecting his voice. And not only has nobody seen him since, but there have been rumors and leaks inside of the palace district. Servants in the palace or some of the other lesser houses, especially amongst the Court of Commons, that nobody is allowed visitation. He's not seeking counsel with anybody anymore. And for most day-to-day tasks are falling to his sister, whose name I have here. Who one of you met, but I forget which one now.
Can I ask a silly question?
Ask many silly questions.
What was the climate like on the day he gave the speech?
The weather, you mean?
Yeah.
I don't remember, so it must have been
Okay.
inconsequential.
So it's irrelevant. Got it. That's actually helpful.
Cannot imagine why.
So,
Terrifying.
old people go outside, and if it's cold, they catch pneumonia, wind up dying.
Does that apply to dwarves, though? I don't know.
Dwarves don't go outside.
Yeah, it applies extra to dwarves because if they're not underground.
The humidity gets them. I don't know. Is it humid? It's probably humid in dwarf caves. Lots of heat. Or is it a dry heat? I don't know. We don't have any real world experience here. I'm sorry. I'm running on like
It's
2
real
hours
wet
of
because
sleep.
they've been stealing all the water.
Yeah, we're not in the desert continent, so.
I mean, technically you are. There is a land route around the ocean.
But
So here's
traveling
the
by
problem.
land to theirs.
When Tensales told you this, he did not offer the information up as though like you'd be doing him this grand favor. It was not like, if you don't do this, I don't get to be king, and I want to be king, so that's why I want you to go in here and do this. Instead, if Journey does this, and Journey becomes the favorite to be swept to the throne, he is prepared to essentially lay siege to the town using his ships. He will take the throne by force if he has to, and because you guys have been gone for a month, he's already been gearing up to do that. This is a last-ditch effort to get him into power without having to resort to violence, which he is both capable of and willing to do. Also, Journey is very anti-magic. So, he also thinks that Flumph Inc. has a vested interest in seeing her not sit the throne.
He's right about that.
I mean, realistically, there's a bunch of wizards in the city, right?
Oh yeah.
So, like, I don't know. I don't think that she would do anything. I think they would.
You don't?
I don't know. We'll
Because
see.
she's been giving daily lectures to the exact opposite effect, and she's been doing it for months.
Yep.
Speaking of the dangers of magic and how people who wield magic not only need to be held accountable, but how in extreme cases we should find ways to strip these forces from people who cannot use them correctly. She's given every indication that if she had the power, she would disband at least a few of the magic guilds in Dunfoss. Now, as king, she might have that political power, whether or not she has the support to follow up from it and actually make it happen, or whether there will be blood in the streets, if mages will rebel and have her assassinated. But if that happens, then it moves on to the next court. The next king is chosen from the Court of Lords, and the commons don't get a king.
Mm-hmm.
But you all agreed to this task, is my recollection. He told you that as payment... Actually, he didn't tell you anything about specific payment. He told you that you would have the King of Dunfoss as one of your greatest friends and allies in the city.
Yeah.
If you
He basically saying you'll have a friend in me. You got a friend.
Don't sing.
in me.
Nope,
No.
not the song.
All right.
So your only lead right now is that you know that Journey, or one of her agents, has further information on how they were supposed to get into the catacombs underneath the palace. Dunfoss has a fairly extensive undercity, part of which you guys have explored underneath the White Hart district. The palace as well is commonly, known is probably too strong a word, commonly thought or commonly believed to have extensive catacombs, especially because the palace itself sits on one of the high hills of the town. The palace district and then the temple district sit on hills that are high above the rest of the town. This was how Maximilian was able to stand on this bridge here and give a grand speech, and everybody in town was able to see him.
So, do we think the agent is that the guy you guys were following? He was a drow, wasn't he?
Yes.
Yes, he was a drow.
That's what we uncovered.
Okay. Maybe we should go speak to the other drow we know and ask her if she's got a track drow spell.
What, all drow know each other?
know each other.
All drow. We all went to the
Y'all
same
beat
place.
me to it.
You all went to that same joke, and it's like a 3-car pile up over there.
Now, to be clear, regarding the nature of drow in Dunfoss, like if you were to go to the Moss Caps and say, hey, I know where there's a drow in this city, he's hiding out here, that would be enough to get that guy arrested. Nobody wants a drow in Dunfoss because they are killers and assassins and poisoners. They're no goods at anybody. Like, even just general elves, like elves we don't have a lot of use for, but most elves don't go around killing people and don't have a long and storied tradition of wielding illusion magic and waging psychic warfare. But drow do.
I feel like the only purebred elf we've met has been psychotic.
Kind of an asshole.
Yeah. And there are very, very few elves that live in Dunfoss. Many half-elves. There's lots of half-elf bloodlines. But elves in this area of the world are very rare, and dragonborn are essentially unheard of. But a drow in Dunfoss would be no more welcome than a goblin.
You could see the people of Dunfoss just like a dragonborn, just like, hey, look at these people, like, look at this. I'm gonna go in and ask for some tacos or something, and they're just gonna string him up and kill him. That's probably what would happen.
Depending on how the Dragonborn conducted himself and how he behaved, he might be looked on as a monster, or he might be looked on as a curiosity because there are a lot of wizards and a lot of magic shenanigans going down here. The difference is nobody in Dunfoss knows what a Dragonborn is, but everybody knows what a goblin is, and there's no love lost for goblins inside the city walls.
Also, to get a little metagamey for a second, in the first campaign, there was a Dragonborn, and he was treated as a curiosity and a beast of burden.
The actual lore is there are no native Dragonborn to this planet, but the first campaign, all the player characters had come from some other planet aboard like a magical planet sailing ship, and one of those people was a Dragonborn, and he turned out to be an asshole, and you had to kill him.
I feel like we treated Adrix like a beast of burden as well, so that tracks.
Yeah, but he enjoyed it.
Adrix was never a burden.
So the fact that you know that Journey is kind of linked up somehow with this drow is significant dirt that you have on them. Conspiring with a drow, that's something worth looking into.
So let's go over our list of current things to look into.
Also, you guys are also conspiring with the drow, as I recall. It's a different drow.
Unimportant. Not relevant.
Right.
There's a lot going on right now.
Yeah.
Also, she's paying us, so,
So we've got this drow to look into. There was an alchemist who was supposedly brewing potions for the king, who was told that she would disappear if the king died. We can go look into seeing if she's disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
We've got... The palace has to have some sort of magical defenses. There's a lot of wizards in the town. I think we either need to go find like a wizard.
Stop there.
Maybe an under...
Because all of you guys are wizards in some regard. You're all spellcasters.
Right. But like an underworld wizard who would know what kind of defenses the palace has. Or I'm thinking we could do some research.
Have everybody make me an Arcana check. We're going to call it DC 15. I just want to know pass or fail.
Oh, I'm good at this now.
Because you all have been living and operating in Dunfoss for a while. I'm going to give everybody the chance to actually know about some of these potential...
Pass.
Pass.
Yeah, that's
Said DC 15?
DC is 15.
Pass.
big
fail.
ol' pass.
How
So-
much did you fail by?
Me, 10. I mean, not, excuse me, 10. 5.
Oh, go ahead and take +5.
Oh, okay. Well, then I pass. I get exactly a 15.
Okay, so all 5 of you passed?
Yeah.
So I am going to give you some information regarding magical defenses that the palace has and let you extrapolate from there whether or not these might extend to the catacombs beneath. And if I can, I'll try to tailor them to your individual characters, but I can't make any promises.
I believe in you.
So
Wow.
It's like,
not only is it just smart for the seat of governance in a main city like this to have magical defenses up, but remember that the current king is a dwarf, and dwarves are by nature mistrustful of magic. One of the first things this king did after taking his office was set up a magic school whose job is to go to every business dealing in Dunfoss and make sure there's no magical coercion happening, which is what Florian does for a living when he feels like working. The king, it's the king's prerogative to set up his own house guard. Maximilian's guard are called the Silver Shields. They are an elite fighting force of exclusively dwarves. And a hidden secret is that the Silver Shields all have a method to use counterspell. Whether or not they're on duty guarding the king or the palace grounds, this is just a thing that dwarven nobles essentially it's just smart to do in order to protect your business dealings, and it's something that it's thought that Maximilian has extended to his office as king. The second thing you guys would almost certainly know is there's not an actual spell to do this. Like, I don't think you can look into PHP and find just a spell that will do this, but a fairly common thing to do if you have the means is to ward a place against teleportation to prevent somebody from just teleporting directly into the king's chamber or even using ethereal or astral travel to get in. The ward in the palace in Dunfoss, the way it works is if you attempt it, they have a specific cell in their dungeons that you wind up in if you attempt to teleport into the palace or cross in using ethereal or astral travel. Whether
What
or not
about leaving?
Well, that's the thing. This is just a rumor.
Okay.
To your knowledge, this is a thing that kind of everybody knows, but nobody's wanted to test it out. If this is true, this would just be a function of the dungeon, that it doesn't matter who the king is. So that's the second thing. The third thing, which would be of special interest to Seeker, is that House Silverwolf specifically has some sort of protections against various kinds of divinations. It's difficult to read their minds. It's difficult to hop into their dreams. Again, this is just kind of a smart thing you do if you're head of a mercantile family to ensure that your business dealings don't get messed with. The thing is, I only had 4 of these, and you guys rolled 5 successes, so I'm going to have to just invent one. The fourth thing is that the palace above ground, at least, which is a relatively modern building by Dunfoss standards, because every king that takes office that plans to be there for a while over the course of their reign will make alterations or modifications to it. What House Silverwolf has done for some of the walls in and around the palace grounds is they use a kind of magical dwarven stone that can regenerate itself. So you can't blast or mine your way through. Whether or not this is true, you have no idea, but it's a rumor that's going around. And now I have to invent one. Because it wouldn't be nice to just tell Gus that he retroactively failed.
It's fine. It's like,
I mean, he retroactively succeeded, so.
hey, Gus, you know the castle is big.
It's a big place.
Yeah.
I
The
mean,
walls taste like candy.
The schnozberries taste like schnozberries.
The what?
Willy Wonka reference. Get on my level, scrub.
Here's something that might be of interest to Gus, because he has some underworld connections in Dunfoss. One of the magic schools in Dunfoss that's kind of officially unofficial is Kavnokar's Eye. It's a guild that is predominantly associated with illusion magic. But the rumors are also associated with thieves guilds and things, underworld contacts. And so there's always speculation that Kavnokar's Eye has, in some manner, infiltrated the palace to some degree. Some previous kings will have just assigned representatives from this particular school to his house if he has need of it, but Maximilian Silverwolf has no need of such creatures in his employ. So there's something that Gus might know.
Neat. Gus knows things.
Well,
I'm glad.
You know one thing.
Gustavus crime.
So now you guys, talking it out, this is kind of what everybody has heard about magical protections in and around the palace.
Okay.
certainly.
Is that enough for us to do a crime?
Well, the good news is that it's only the house itself that's protected against divinations, not the entire palace.
Correct.
So
This is thought to
good
be,
to know.
it's kind of thought to be like a characteristic of any wealthy dwarven house. And the Silverwolves are among the wealthiest. So you can probably count on the king and his... I can't find his sister's name in my notes anywhere. But she's the head of the Dunfoss Mint.
Mm-hmm.
And anyone else who bears the family name or works close with the family and is also a dwarf, you can probably count on not being able to use divination magic, or you can count on it being more difficult than usual. Hawthorne House does run a chapter out of the Palace District. That's also, or out of the palace itself. That's also common knowledge. So there are blackjackets on site.
What if we tunneled into the castle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Again, that goes to that how we don't know if the stone around the thing regenerates, and if so, how fast it is.
Seems really disruptive too.
Yeah, this is supposed to be a quiet thing.
I mean, my question is, if we go into the castle, like let's say we get someone in there and we find the king, has been laid to rest somewhere, how do we get evidence of that is irrefutable to others?
That's a good question.
That's I can brainstorm ways to sneak into the palace grounds and out all day, but without an actual plan of action for what to do once we get there and get out, it's no good.
Well, the thing is how... I've got two thoughts. First, I'll go on the body thing. We just stick the dead body into the bag of holding and leave and give it to 10 cells and be like, here's your dead body. Loudly proclaim that you have... Although that might cause a war where they think that he killed the king.
Yeah.
Okay, so
probably not.
Here's my thought, right? 10 cells wants to know if the king's dead, and if so, where. We find the body, we alarm it up, so that if anyone goes to move it, we know, and we just tell 10 cells where it is. If he goes to the palace gate, starts telling everyone, hey, there's a dead body, and I can tell you exactly where to find it, and the palace just goes, oh, no, there's not, and you can't come look, I think that's good enough for him.
Is there some way to... Do wizards have some kind of tracking spell besides alarm? Can you put... Because I don't know off the top of my head. Do you have some kind of tracking spell for your divination?
If I can locate objects?
Yeah, I guess a dead body's an object, right?
Yeah.
No, I meant more like a passive tracking skill, but I guess that doesn't exist.
I mean, locate object is kind of a passive tracking skill.
Yeah. But it doesn't have a very good range.
If he's actually dead, he would count as an object.
Is our job just to verify that the king is dead so 10 cells can make the proclamation confidently?
He just wants to know if the king is dead, and if so, what have they done with the body?
Okay.
That's the information that he's assuming Journey is after, because just having that information, like you said earlier, that's enough for them to go and demand that the king present himself to stop holding up this process that the Court of Commons is entitled to.
All right, so I can make someone invisible. I can see invisibility, and I can make shoes that will make any movement you make imperceivable.
I'm probably gonna need that.
I can only make one pair of shoes.
I have a question because I have a sort of a plan. Alex, exactly how much acid do you have?
I don't like where this plan is going.
22 vials currently.
Oh, that's not enough acid. Never
Where
mind.
do you carry all this acid?
Bag of holding.
Plan retracted. Like he just...
Some of it's in my lab, some of it's in Scrappy's saddlebag, some of it's in my alchemist kit, and some of it's in the bag of holding.
One day we're gonna just like turn his bag inside out, and everybody's going to burn to death in acid.
What's funny about...
I had to get rid of the alchemist jug to make the shoes, so I'm no longer producing a vial of acid every night.
I think 22 vials is enough.
I forget, it's been so long since I've read the DMG, but the bag of holding in second edition used to specifically say it opens up into this extra dimensional space on the astral plane where you can just throw stuff, right? Which was fine if all you had was the book that had the bag of holding in it. But then I bought the Planescape material about the astral plane, all the dumb shit that's traveling around the astral plane all the time. There has to be Githyanki pirates out there sailing the astral, just looting people's bag of holdings.
Well, it's a question of non-dimensional versus extra-dimensional spaces, if you really want to get technical.
I do. I really want to. Do you have a graph?
What did Turn get here?
Maybe a pie chart. Anyway, probably an astral dreadnought has not come by and eaten all 22 vials of your acid.
Oh, the main reason it's that low is I also have to create lamp oil for the Lantern of Revealing. So I've been splitting my work.
So is the plan then to try to sneak onto the palace grounds proper, and then from there find a way down into the catacombs?
I mean, we don't even have like an idea of what the catacombs look like in terms of like passageways and maps and shit, do we?
You do not. But I mean, if you had a task that needed done that required that information, you could do worse than to go and hire Dunfoss's premier detective services.
Yeah, but Vandalay won't work with us.
I mean,
Look, so Seeker, you had some sort of lead on someone who's trying to steal whatever was wrong with the king, right?
Yes.
And then we also have a lead on Journey having these mysterious meetings at night.
Yes.
yeah.
And I gave 10 salespeople that are trailing Journey a sending stone to contact me if she tries to do anything.
Right.
What kind of bullcrap is in the Telesnus app library?
All
do
the
they have-
bullcrap.
Kinds of
Okay, do
things.
they have blueprints on file? Like city planning documents?
So there would
No,
not...
Bernard.
These kinds of things would not exist. I mean, you really didn't have a city planner back in the day. The city just kind of, probably originally on these two hills before Dunfoss was founded, was probably an impenetrable castle that some lord set up, and he just became the strongest lord, and people started doing more and more business around him, and he now controlled this great port, and the city kind of built up around him. So you're not going to find like a blueprint of city planning. But at some point, those catacombs, if they are down there, which is almost certainly true, had to have been dug out or built or something. And there may be records from that time. You're going back a good 1,000 years.
Yeah.
Would I
but-
be... Is the palace currently, like, do they bar entry from anyone? Like, as a son of an ambassador, would I just be able to walk onto the palace grounds?
That question really differs depending on who sits the throne and what else is going on. Maximilian... Like, he's not always been a recluse, but he has been more apt to deny audiences than a lot of previous Dunfossan kings. He was much more of a behind-the-scenes, let's just work on the problems back here kind of guy.
Is there a pretext I could get onto the palace grounds with outside of having an audience with the king? Like other people I might have business with?
Well, petitioners do tend to pile up in the palace. Like at any given time in and around the palace district, there's a whole industry of people who are petitioning the king for this or that are just waiting. And so any pretext at all might be able to get you into the palace and get you on the books as you are making some sort of petition.
One of my thoughts is I could make myself invisible and walk onto the palace guards and see if they just even notice me. Like, I won't say anything, but in case they can see invisibility, I'll act like I'm supposed to be there. Just as a quick, do they have a way to see invisible people?
I'm assuming they'll be able to see invisible people just because the blackjackets can.
Yeah, that might.
Blackjackets have to spread dust around and actually expend resources to do that, though.
Here's my thought: is the mint on the palace grounds?
The mint is in the palace district, but it's not inside the palace proper.
We could
Here.
wait for a time, because I happen to know that we have a great deal of those demon coins left over. That the last time I saw the king's sister, she wanted to confiscate. We could say we're going to deliver them to her. Wait till a time when she's in the palace. Then we
Or
have
we
a
just get rerouted
valid
to the
reason
mint?
to go meet her. We can wait till she's in the palace rather than the mint. I'm assuming she visits the palace. She's the king's sister.
Well, she's
Yeah.
she's kind of doing most of the day-to-day tasks for the crown at this point. And that's
Right.
the problem a lot of people are having is that if she's acting as king because the king is dead, then it's time to select the next king. It's not a hereditary office. She would be breaking a lot of laws.
But you've got it in there. It sounds like if with those cursed coins, yeah. I think Florian and I try to tail this drow fellow that Journey's been meeting. Pick his
That-
trail back up.
Yeah.
Honestly, that seems like it might be a good step for all of us to do just as a first step. Like, let's see where the competition is.
Yeah, exactly.
So you guys, because 10 Sails has some men watching Journey, you guys gave them a sending stone so they can get in touch with you if they need to.
Yeah.
And Journey is a very public figure. It's almost always possible to find where she is during the day just by asking around.
Mm-hmm.
The difference in her behavior as of late is that she used to have this kind of ceremony she'd do in the morning. As a Tiefling, if she sustains damage, she can unleash a hellish rebuke. This is just a very common thing that Tieflings are able to do just because they have devilish blood inside of them. And she used to do that every morning to light the hearth at the tavern where she lives. And she has not been doing that lately, the past couple of weeks.
I think we should also check in with the alchemist to see if she disappeared.
Okay.
So if they black bagged her?
Yeah.
Let's then get let's see, we squared up all your taxes and everything last week, did we not?
Yep.
So the other thing is, today is Ends Day, so today you are supposed to speak with Corio.
Oh, yeah, he's a thing.
That's all right. We can tell him about all the stuff we found.
Are we holding anything back?
No, because we want to get him to fund a trip to Blue Worm.
That's one of the things Tasha's has now, is really good rules about having, like, the
patrons.
Right. I don't think any of these are appropriate for this campaign, at least not in their entirety, but I do like the rules a lot. Like, I much prefer looking at this from the position of how much in debt you guys are.
Campaign's we're still gonna be the same place where we were in debt.
So you guys tell Corio everything that you learned from the Apton and Ocragon?
We spend like 20 minutes teaching him how to say it.
I mean, he gets it first try every time. He takes to it immediately.
Do we want to hold
Excellent.
anything back in case we need something for the subsequent week?
Well, I don't think we can because
We were out of town.
Yeah, technically
were-
you're only in for 2
All right.
visits. You guys were gone
Fair
for a long
enough.
time.
But like it's one of those things where it's like oh, why didn't you tell this to me last week? It's not like you made another trip out into the woods in the week since I saw you.
But before you left, you had also gotten word to him, as I recall, that you were doing some field work and that you'd be gone for a while. So it's not like you just vanished.
Yeah. Yeah, he knew about this trip.
So Corio is delighted to hear this news, because now not only are you guys like working the job to get his house reestablished as Dunfoss in Dunfoss's nobility, but also there's like this magical mystery in the past where the last living Firebloods in Dunfoss just vanished without a trace, and there's no record of them, even in this like magical supercomputer that you found that has records on everything. And that for some reason, one of the Dunfoss forebears returns to the city to cast a vote for king when it's necessary. And did this even after Forsake. Like, he's really getting into the mystery aspect of it.
Yeah. No, you're right. It's a curiouser and curiouser, yes.
So do you...
I tell him that if a vote for king comes up, the fact that we have shown that like not even this magical supercomputer has information on the family means that that might be his best time to make an appearance.
That's not out of the question.
The problem is it's not the Lord's.
If you set 10 sails on the throne and then assassinate him, then the Court of Lords would have to convene to choose the next king. So
I mean, theoretically speaking, yes, and this is entirely hypothetical, Corio. We're not advocating of this.
I'm assuming that Corio is going to live longer than 10 spells.
Corio, by the way, loves Sigurd 10 Sails. And he loves Journey. Corio loves everybody.
I mean, it's fair.
He's a real bro.
So, but you tell him that you need to make an excursion to Blue Worm.
Yes.
It's where the evidence points us.
Mhm.
And what do you ask of him in order to prepare for this journey, if anything?
Does he have any contacts there? We don't really know anyone.
The interesting thing about Koryo has always been that he seems to have limitless wealth, but he doesn't actually have contacts or know anybody, and nobody knows him either. That was kind of the case when he first arrived in Dunfoss. He's a much more known quantity now because he's been staying here for so long. But the short answer to the question is no. He doesn't have any contacts that you can use inside of Blue Worm.
Does it
Florian.
cost?
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, is the portal in Blue Worm something we know about? Is that a known thing?
So you learned
Yeah.
about 2 portals, but leaving the grounds of the Apt and Anakragon, knowledge of one of them vanished.
Okay, so we know that, like,
There's a portal in the courtyard of the Temple of Osprey.
I'm just wondering, is that like a public portal? Is what I'm asking. Can people use it, or do they have to pay?
I'll put it this way. You know enough about the portal that when you get to Blue Worm, you will know the proper way to investigate it and
Okay,
get answers
alright.
to those questions.
That's perfect. Thank you. That answers.
Florian,
I was just
then
wondering,
go-
like, if we needed to ask for money to get into the portal. Like,
Florian,
there's
do you know of any? Do you know you have any old friends in Blue Worm who might be able to give us a hand?
You do know at least one person in Blue Worm right now.
Yep.
we do.
Yeah, we do. We do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We do.
What's his face?
Wolf.
Tom Wolf. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. In fact, he asked for our help. The
Did he?
Mhm.
yeah, his master died, I think.
So just to refresh your memory, Tom Wolf, you sent him down to Blue Worm, and he was going to reconnect with an old master of his, who has now vanished. And he needs detective friends to come down and detect for him.
So, but anyway, like, my inquiry was mostly just like, does it cost money? Is it the same guy that's like selling that razor vine or whatever it's called to people as houseplants? Is like, it's like just some assholes like, hey, it costs 50 gold to go through the portal.
Talk about invasive species. Holy shit. Like you've seen like kudzu, right?
So we're not asking anything of Koryo as far as like we need this expedition to be funded.
Yeah. I don't think we need it.
Is it possible to get passage on a ship? I believe the canal was drained up. Is there an easier overland route if you take a ship south first?
Probably not easier. Probably maybe a little shorter.
So there's like not a road from here that goes directly there.
Oh, there is. It's relatively well maintained in this area, right around Dunfoss. But as you get further south into the wilds, well, you're going to be going through the wilderness overland, regardless. There's no way around it.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe when we leave, a carriage and some horses. But I think for right now, we're good.
He can arrange that. He'll just put it on your tab.
Yep, there it is.
This is a work expense.
I feel like Seeker is just morally offended by this.
You can put it on our tab, but I'm gonna bill him for it. He's gonna be paying himself.
So what are we going to do about getting into the palace? Let's think about this in terms of how are you spending the rest of the day after meeting Koryo that morning?
Okay, so I think our best chance to find out about this drow is we let 10 salesmen spot her trying to disappear, and then we tail her. So
Mhm.
until then, I think we're free. So, does anyone want to do any of you want to go, or Lucius? I guess you're the only choice. Go investigate that library, see if they have any records.
Yeah.
So Lucius, the HQ of Tylesnus Apt is in the palace districts, but not in the palace proper. Historically, the king has maintained a chapter of Tylesnus Apt inside the palace, because typically the king would draw like his personal magicians from Tilesnus Apt. Very notably, Maximilian did not do this. And so when he took office some years ago, there was some like kind of grumbling because Tilesnus Apt had to move a lot of materials and personnel outside of the palace that had been stationed there for well over 100 years.
Okay.
So you might be able to find someone bitter about it and get them to talk.
Maybe.
So Lucius is going to go to Tilesnus Apt.
Yep. And I am paid up on my dues, so everything should be kosher on that end.
Is Seeker going with him?
Will they even let me in?
I mean, Lucius can vouch for you and get you a day pass kind of situation.
Do you think that would be helpful, Lucius?
I mean, I'm okay with it.
Sure, then.
So here's two things you would know then, Lucius. The way to get Seeker access to the most places possible would be to frame it as, this is an individual who I am thinking about sponsoring for joining the Brotherhood.
Mm-hmm.
That would be a very expensive prospect if you were going to actually do it.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to go that route, Seeker might have to demonstrate aptitude with magic, which probably won't be a problem because Seeker has more aptitude for magic than you do.
So we'll do that, and the nice thing about it is you can, if I know anything about societies like this, they like their admissions to be a really long, drawn-out process, which means we can do this as long as we need to.
It would also be very expensive if you actually were to look into it.
Oh, we don't have to. That's the best thing.
Right.
But how's that going to affect your affiliation with the other thing? Because they're likely to look in on that kind of thing.
It wouldn't.
Yeah, and Seeker just laughs when you question his admission to the Diviners. Yeah. I wouldn't worry about it.
Membership in one of the city's magic schools does not preclude membership in another. You can hold membership in several at once or none at all.
Well, I mean, it would have been like, oh, well, this guy's a member of the current dues-paying member of the Diviners. How does that work? Why is he trying to get in on our action? The
Diviners Guild is looked on by many actual magicians in this city as charlatans and fraudsters.
Exactly. That's why That's why it would be very questionable.
Well, no, it's that they tricked this diviner into joining them, and now he wants to go legit because he's an actual diviner.
Yeah, I'm a forest gnome who, visiting the city, inquired about the most appropriate place to display my talents, heard there was a Diviners Guild, joined up, and then met some of the other diviners. Asked and answered.
Fair enough.
So
okay.
what
tracks.
What are the other three of you doing the day of the 6th? Because by this evening is when you're going to want to try to find Journey, correct? I heard that. Okay.
That's when she was seeing this guy. And
so what are Alex and Gus and Florian going to be doing today?
Alex is going to go to the palace grounds and just find out the kind of people, kind of just mill around and investigate a little bit the people that are waiting to see the king and see if there's anything interesting, any inroads there, anyone he can maybe like piggyback on if they're going to, maybe he thinks they can get in.
In and amongst petitioners, you mean?
Yep.
Make me a... Now, how much gold are you willing to spread around?
Let's say 2 gold pieces.
That's it? 2 gold over the course of the day?
Yeah.
Okay. Make a charisma investigation check.
I was going to say, it sounds like Alex needs a chaperone for that.
Do you want to come along?
I do.
Okay.
Also, would your father help us all in this regard? Do you want the captain up for this?
Oh, that's a good one. I need that after that time loop bullshit.
So wait, you're going to go ask one of the main, like one of the wealthiest and oldest Gnomish nobles if he will help intervene in the Court of Commons selecting a king.
Yeah. It sounds like exactly the kind of thing
hey,
Alexander would love to manipulate.
How about he helps you select the worst possible king who will die in 2 years so Alex's dad can get a vote for the next king after that? That's probably how that would go.
So, charisma, and then I'm going to have this.
Charisma
Wait,
investigation.
Are
Isn't
you
10
helping
sales
with
the only
this?
human?
Can I get another from Florian?
Is Florian trained in investigation?
Yes, he is.
Okay, then yeah, that's appropriate. What is Gus doing today?
I'm gonna swing around and I'm gonna go shop for potions at that alchemy shop and see if she's been black bagged.
Okay, go ahead and give me an investigation check, please.
That's a 5.
And how did Alex do?
26.
26.
But yeah, my charisma's real low, so.
And bear with me just 1 minute. Wait, did you say you got a 26 and then lament that your charisma was really
Yeah, it would have been
low?
30 if it was normal intelligence investigate.
This campaign's over. We're done. We're done here.
I have to knock off that 2 gold.
Charisma is what you need if your planning has failed.
And what is the plan when Lucius and Seeker get to Tyleston Sap? Like, what kind of avenue are you going to take when you get there?
Like I said, probably looking to see about sponsoring this guy in. What we're looking for is stuff that's relevant to his area of expertise in divining. Any historical records regarding the construction of divination protections on the palace grounds.
Okay. Seeker, what do you do to demonstrate that Tyleston's app should even consider letting you join this brotherhood? I mean, having Lucius as a sponsor is a good first step because he's a member in good standing and he has friends and contacts there, but can you even friggin' use magic?
I think. Trying to think of an impressive way to. I think my most impressive spell is going to be Arcane Eye. So I think, Lucius, can you point out? Do you know 2 people in Telestis Apt who don't like each other very much?
Oh, easily. There's lots of petty rivalries and disagreements.
Oh yes.
Then I think I'll wait for my moment and then use Arcane Eye to just kind of like off the cuff, as though it was the first person I saw, inform one of them on the doings of the other at that moment somewhere else in the facility.
Okay, make a. Let's call this intelligence performance.
Okay.
And just give me the number.
Actually, I don't think I want to roll this one. That is a 21.
Okay.
Save this 3 for later.
Alex and Florian.
Yeah.
You guys spread out a little bit of gold. Do some askings. There's a lot of petitioners built up in and around the palace districts. Some of them have been waiting months. Probably a couple of them have been here for years. Maximilian has never been big on holding court or seeing petitioners. He always felt like he's got better things than to listen to small folk complain about trivial matters. So there's a lot of people to look through. But what you've figured out is that they've been building up more in the past month or so than usual. And even the past year before Maximilian first took ill, more and more have built up. And you definitely get the sense that workers from the palace, servants for House Silverwolf, and the various departments and offices therein are doing their best to try to cover up this idea that the king is not in a state to see anybody at the moment, and nobody knows when court will next be held.
Where do they stay? Are they all stay in like the Palace District, or do they have to go to the inns in like High Bluffs or something?
That really depends on their stature in town.
Okay.
Like a high noble who is a petitioner might be granted guest quarters in the palace itself. You learn that this has not happened recently. Those quarters, as far as you can tell, all sit empty. There are a lot of establishments in the Palace District, inns of very high quality, boarding houses and things. Other than that, people are just kind of left to their own devices.
Okay.
The man
Is there
that you...
procedure that they follow when he does, like, are there like weekly or monthly calls where they, how do they determine who would come in if they did, like, basically?
It's up to the king's discretion.
Okay.
The king says, on this day we will see business of this nature, and then servants go out and amongst the petitioners, criers go out with lists. There's not an actual... I mean, some kings probably have an actual procedure. Some kings really enjoy holding court and lording over the people, but Maximilian does not.
Mm-hmm. And he hasn't done this in weeks/months.
He has not held court in many, many months. He's met from time to time one-on-one with this petitioner or that on matters directly relating to like his personal house business or business that's actually important to the city of Dunfoss as a whole. But he's not held court where you just line up and everybody comes in, you know, he stole 3 pigs and owes me 6 goats kind of stuff.
Do we hear any names of people he's done that with? Like anything pop out?
The man that you meet, his name is Juice God Cascaz. That's with a Q, a K, and 2 Z's, people.
Did you say Juice God?
Juice God Cascaz.
Juice God. Okay. I thought you said Juice God, like
FantasyNameGenerator.com. What do you want?
the Lord of Jamba Juice. All right. Anyway.
Yeah, Fantasy Name Generator. That's the...
Dude, we were like always upping, like I tried to get a corporate sponsorship with FantasyNameGenerators.com. Now we're just like bashing it every day.
You hear this guy's name because he has a very vocal claim. Not just... He's a foreigner, for one thing. He's not a citizen of Dunfoss. He owns a large manor house on the road to the north. And he's from a wealthy family. He and his family are humans. And they kind of run this manor house as a large inn alongside the road. His claim is that soldiers marching north to war have ravaged his inn, have stolen belongings, have caused him great loss of property. He's claiming that basically Dunfoss soldiers traveling north have either broken away from the main force or deserted, and that there's reports of them in the wildlands taking over farms, all this kind of nonsense. A lot of people don't believe it. A lot of people think that Juice God is just like an opportunist. He's using this false claim to try to milk some wealth out of the king, who is attempting to send all of his wealth into this war effort. But the more you hear about the man, and he's staying at a fairly wealthy inn here in the Palace District, what sends your little spider senses tingling is that the stories about his claims are consistent. And they could not be consistent if there weren't truth to them. So your 26 gets you a sit down with Mr. Cascaz, should you desire one. Meanwhile, Lucius and Seeker.
Yep.
Seeker, you pull this arcane eye stunt with a gnome that Lucius knows in passing named Wormwick.
Okay.
Wormwick is a master illusionist. And is it your intent to, like, which side of this little prank is Wormwood going to be on? Is he going to be the recipient of the arcane eye? Is he the one you're gonna...
No, I think he's going to be the beneficiary.
Okay.